Hey, welcome to the Learning Drummer channel. This video is all about how to practice, not what to practice. That's what we've covered in the previous videos. So as you well know, that this is where I am imparting knowledge to you, and it's for your benefit. It's drummer to drummer speak. That's what we're doing here. Okay, we also talked about in the past warming up for a gig versus warming up to practice. Warming up to practice, as we've talked about in the past, is so that you can increase your abilities and grow as a drummer, as a musician. Warming up for a gig is you're doing it to warm up your body so that you can, in fact, play the gig incredibly well. So, one thing you want to think about with warming up for a gig is just simply doing 16th notes for a full measure, double strokes for a full measure, 16th note for a full measure, double strokes, etc. Enough of the what. Just had to throw that out there. Back to the how. Okay, imagine if you will, you have 1 hour a day to practice. Your buddy also has 1 hour a day to practice. Assuming that you and he or she are on the same skill level and talent level, why is it they're getting better faster? Tell you, it's primarily for time management and practice routine management. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is how do you get there? So the first thing I want you to do is think about high level. Where is it you want to go? Now, I'm not talking stratospheric that, oh, gee, I want to play in amphitheaters, 40,000 people, whatever. No, what I'm talking about is where is it you want to go in a month? So right now, let's say you're just starting out with jazz, understanding jazz and playing it. You're doing straight 4 on the bass drum. You're doing da-da-da-da-da-da-da on the hi-hat. You want to grow that. You want to be able to have more flexibility. So that's your monthly goal. Now, how do you do that? You figure that out and you break it down into 4 weekly goals so that you can first address, let's say, your bass drum, going off the hi-hat and going off the solid 4 pulses in a 4/4 measure. Next is you want to do it with your hand. Maybe both of those are the first week, whatever it is. So you're breaking it down. That's the point. And then you get down to what is the amount of time that you can spend every day to practice. Now, keep in mind, trying to practice every day also means that you're going to have some days where it's going to only be 15 minutes of practice versus an hour that you've set aside for that day. Well, better to practice 15 minutes than to say, oh, I just don't have time, and then sit back and have a Coke and a bag of chips or whatever it is. I don't care. Sorry, Coca-Cola, I didn't mean to use your name without your permission. Anyway, so what you're looking at is when I was in college, they used to have this meme that was kind of along the lines of that you miss one day, nobody notices. You miss practice a second day, you notice. You miss practice a third day, everybody notices. Well, as you know, I've taken 25 years off. I've been practicing now for 4 years, 5 years in a row. And guess what? If I miss one day, I notice right off the bat. And I'm sure the people that are really important notice it too. So somewhere at some point, at some age in everybody's life, that transition happens. So even if you only have 15 minutes to warm up during the week and you were hoping for an hour, 2 hours of practice time, whatever it is, do the 15 minutes. That's the first thing. Okay, back to it. So an hour and a half, an hour, whatever it is that you've set aside. Out of that, you want to break that up even further. So here we go with this funnel. You know, the big goal, down a little bit, down a little bit, down. And that's where we keep going. So now you have your hour a week or a day. A week, an hour a day. So you want to have it broken down, let's say right off the bat, into 3 different areas. The first is warm up. How much time are you going to spend on warming up? The second is a lesson. So let's assume that you are taking lessons from somebody. How much time are you going to spend on that lesson after warm up? And the third is practicing to improve your abilities above and beyond that lesson. So we'll get to the details of that latter part later, but we will talk about it. So what you do is you want to write down all of these points. You want to write down the exercises that you do to warm up. Now, you can do that electronically, you can do it on paper, I don't care. If you do it electronically, there's Google Docs you can do it in, there's LibreOffice is a free office suite for your computer. I don't care, but you want to write down all of the warm-ups, all of the practice routines, and your lesson is stated at the bottom or at the top, I don't care. But you also write down the date, you write down the BPM, beats per minute. We'll talk about that in a second. And you have a comments section. So what you're going to do is you're going to take out of that list 3 to 6 warm-up exercises that you really like. And you're going to say, those are the ones I'm doing the first week. So let's say you have 10 of them, 1, 2, and 3. That's going to be your first week. So what you do is you practice the first one. Let's just say it's 16th notes. You start out at a BPM that you really like, 100. It's a simple BPM for you. 16th notes, 1 yen, 2 yen, 3 yen, 4 yen, whatever. And you do that for a full minute. Next, you stop, up the BPM, 110, turn it on, count yourself in, and then do 16th notes. You keep going. Maybe your max is going to be, I don't know, 140. That's where it's clean and you can still do 1 minute, full 1 minute at 140, clean. That's great. So you write down that date, the max BPM that you were able to do it at, and any comments that you may have had for it. The comments section really comes in when it's practicing for your lesson or for the practice areas, which I'll get to in a moment. So you do that with those 3. Now you've warmed up. Now, we're talking about warm-ups that we've already talked about were for hands. We're also going to get into warm-up for feet and for drum set. Drum set is a warm-up of coordination. And the feet are, of course, 2 limbs like your hands that you want to warm up as well. Those videos are all coming up, but we're addressing them in the beginning today just a little bit. So that said, BPM. Let's say you have no way of knowing what a BPM is because you're in a practice room, there's no cell phones allowed, I don't know, whatever it is. You have no metric knowing device. What you can do is memorize a couple of songs and know what their BPMs are. You don't memorize the whole song. Case in point, there was a song that was out a couple years ago that was very popular. We Don't Talk About Bruno. It's a 104, right in that pocket. So you can hum that to yourself in your mind's eye, and now you've got 104 and you can do your warm-ups to 104. You also have another song that you know is a 110 or a 114, whatever it is, 120. Most marches are around a 120, so you can warm up to that. You see where I'm going is that you have the ability, no matter if you don't have the technology with you or if you do. So, all right. As we're starting to talk about your feet and the drum set, your feet can do most of what your hands can do. You just have to train them. Now, I say that for the double pedal people or the double bass drum people. Hi-hat can do a lot of it. And some guys are really good with heel up, being able to do fast hi-hat, click, 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 click. Not me. But if you're one of those people that can, more power to you. But now that we're talking about feet, you can do the warm-ups that we had for the hands in the feet. That's a great way to start warming up your feet. But I'm going to mention something right now that's extremely important for you, and that is there's this little thing called tinnitus. Some people call it tinnitus. It is an annoying ringing in your ears that does not stop. It can sound like a hissing valve. It can sound like a ring, or both. It is not pleasant. I've had it. I have it. It does not go away. There's no cure for it. There's no treatment for it. It is very bad. So protect your ears. And I don't care if you use foam earplugs, that's a good way to go, or if you use headphones. Now these headphones are, believe it or not, shooter's headphones. This is what gun people do at the gun range. I found them, they were cheaper than using music intended headphones that can plug into an outlet, a click track or whatever. These don't, but they protect your ears. They're very, very good. So anyway, that was an aside, public service announcement, call it what you will. But you need to protect your ears. They're the one thing that no matter what happens to the rest of you, you need to have your ears working wonderfully. Okay, so you break down your practice routine. You have 15 minutes of warm-up, 30 minutes of practicing your lesson, 15 minutes of practice. What I mean by the practice is that's where you're going to take jazz, rock, funk, fusion, country, reggae, Latin, whatever it is. You're going to list them in that spreadsheet or that list that you have, and you're going to pick 3 of them a week to work on. 5 minutes each. So that's your other 15 minutes. 5 minutes of jazz, 5 minutes of reggae, 5 minutes of shuffle, whatever it is, or 5 minutes of Mozambique. I don't care. But that's what you're going to work on that week. You're going to then make comments at the end of the week as to what you think you need to work on with that beat again, and then you pick 3 more for the next week. But when you come back to that, whether it be jazz, Mozambique, whatever it is, when you come back to it, you read your comments and say, oh yeah, that's right. That's where I was stumbling. That's where I left off. And that's when you can pick up. So you're helping to maximize your output by knowing on paper where you've been. And that's really, really important. So, another thing that I'll talk about, 2 other things very quickly, and then we're done, is it's very beneficial to play along with recorded music. Now, it's good to copy, it's good to imitate, and it's also good to ad-lib. But remember when you do that, that the person that's playing that recording, whether it's on YouTube or Apple Music or wherever it is, I don't care, they were paid to do what they did. They didn't overplay, they didn't underplay, they did exactly what they needed to do. I mean, you think about Phil Collins when he came out with that one song and it went ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. I'm sure he could have blown in a much more difficult fill, but that was exactly what the song dictated. So think about musicality. Think about what the song needs. You'll start to open up whole new mentalities when you're doing that. So that's one thing. The other thing is that make sure that the song you're playing with holds a tempo. There's a lot of things out there by really good top professionals where it starts out, let's say, at a 108 BPM, and by the time they're done, they're around 111, 112. That's not going to help you as much, but it will help you to play along with them. Also, what you want to think about is, if you have the ability, write a chart out for the song and play what you've written out. It helps out a lot. It helps out when you finally start to get gigs where you're saying, all right, I need to be able to read this. I need to be able to sight read this. Believe me, they come along. The last thing I want to talk with you about is when you get done with that hour of practice. Now, granted, we've just thrown in playing with recorded media, which now takes it up to probably an hour and 15 minutes. That next half hour or next 15 minutes, to make it an hour and a half, I will oftentimes just play. Sometimes I'll do it with a metronome. Let's say I set it up at 120. I'll play along and whatever it is I want to do. Then every time with that click, that's the pulse in the metronome. So I'll stop, back it down to 60, which is half. So now it's just giving me a click on 1 and 3. So I'll play the same beat going along, and I'm just checking in with the metronome on 1 and 3. And that's where I'm hanging. So now I stop. I'll back it back down. Now I'm at 30. So now it's just going to give me a click on the downbeat, the 1 of every 4/4 measure. So now I'm going to play the same beat again and do that to the, that's the 1. So it's helpful. I hope that helps you as well. So that's it for today's lesson. We're going to be coming out with the drum set warm-ups, the feet warm-ups, and then the drum drills, what we're doing to get better there. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped you. If it has, please subscribe. That encourages me. And otherwise, may God bless you and your musical life. It's a great time, I'm telling you.